Some people feel like they never switch off. They are constantly scanning, predicting, preempting, never fully present, just quietly waiting for something to go wrong. You may appear externally calm, but inside the thinking never settles. The mind stays busy, so the body doesn't have to feel. This isn't just a busy mind, it's a nervous system on hyper alert after too many unmet, unkind, or unpredictable experiences. This is anxiety. Nothing is wrong with you. Your system adapted to survive. If you experienced childhood trauma, your amygdala likely developed in a state of hypervigilant overdrive. Research suggests early relational stress can shape brain development, often leaving the nervous system organised around threat rather than safety. This can look like intense reactions to small triggers, difficulty regulating emotion, overthinking, analysing, catastrophizing, feeling overwhelmed by your own responses. This isn't weakness, it's a nervous system shaped too early around survival. Functional freeze and anxiety sit on opposite ends of the same survival river. One is containment, the other is pursuit. One is the body saying, I will survive by not needing. The other is the body saying, I will survive by staying ahead. Both are brilliance. Both are costly. Both were learned in relationship. Freeze says, don't move too much. Anxiety says, never stop moving. And most people don't live in only one. They oscillate between holding and chasing, between disappearing and scanning, between quiet numbness and restless urgency. Not all anxiety feels like panic. Sometimes it feels like thinking ahead, reading tone, preparing conversations, staying productive, tracking others, holding the emotional weather, needing reassurance but not settling when it comes. That's not overthinking. That's a nervous system that never learned it could rest inside connection. Anxiety does not always look like hysteria. Often it looks like a life that is technically working. People with anxiety go to work, maintain relationships, reply to messages, and fulfill responsibilities. From the outside, they may look calm, capable, even grounded. Inside, there is often a constant state of mental movement, scanning, tracking, anticipating, preparing, not standing outside life, but never fully settling into it. The body stays braced, the mind stays busy. Presence never quite lands. This is the quiet disconnection of anxiety, not from life, but from rest inside it. A nervous system that learned early that safety required vigilance. One of the most painful aspects of anxiety is not fear, it's partialness. People often describe being in moments but not inside them, being with others but still monitoring, resting but not arriving, enjoying things but never fully receiving them, feeling relief briefly, then losing it again. Life is happening, but part of the nervous system stays ahead of it, tracking, anticipating, preparing. This is why anxiety is so exhausting, not because danger is always present, but because presence is never complete. Anxiety is not a personality trait. It's not weakness. It's not overthinking. It is a nervous system state. It is often early, relational, protective, and deeply embodied, which is why motivation doesn't cure it. Positive thinking doesn't cure it. Just relax doesn't touch it. Being successful doesn't resolve it. Being loved doesn't automatically settle it. Sometimes more stimulation actually intensifies it, because anxiety doesn't come from your thoughts. It comes from a nervous system that learned early it had to stay alert to stay alive. Anxiety is not a malfunction. It's an adaptation. When environments felt unpredictable, when safety was inconsistent, when emotions weren't reliably met, the nervous system adjusted, not by collapsing, but by staying alert, by scanning, by anticipating, by preparing. This state allowed you to stay oriented, responsive, and functional in environments where settling didn't feel safe. Anxiety kept you ready when uncertainty felt too costly. Anxiety often forms when emotional environments were unpredictable, needs weren't reliably met, connection felt inconsistent or fragile, tension lived in the air, or the child had to stay alert to stay safe. So the nervous system learned to track, anticipate, and prepare instead of settling. Over time, the nervous system learned it's safer to anticipate than to trust, safer to scan than to settle, safer to stay prepared than to be surprised. So it adapted, not by panicking all the time, but by staying quietly alert, by tracking tone, by reading shifts, by rehearsing outcomes, by staying just ahead of what might go wrong. This is how anxiety becomes familiar, not because danger is constant, but because the body learned to survive by never fully standing down. Anxiety doesn't persist because you're not trying hard enough. It persists because the nervous system has not yet learned that it is safe to stand down. If unpredictability once led to shock, if closeness carried risk, if calm was followed by rupture, the body stays alert even when life changes. So anxiety remains, not out of weakness, not out of habit, but out of learned protection. The system is waiting for evidence, not reassurance, that presence is safer than vigilance now. And nervous systems don't update through logic, they update through experience. Anxiety is often mistaken for personality. I'm just a worrier. I've always been like this. I'm just highly strung. I care a lot. I think deeply. This is just who I am. We confuse vigilance with intuition. We confuse over-functioning with responsibility. We confuse tension with motivation. We confuse preparedness with safety. And over time, a nervous system state becomes a self-concept, not because it is who you are, but because it is how your body learned to survive. In anxiety, the nervous system decides rest is not safe, settling is not protective, letting go risks being caught unprepared. So instead of softening into connection, the body stays alert. Loneliness doesn't disappear, it sharpens, restless, searching, never quite soothed. Anxiety doesn't remove the ache, it keeps it active enough to survive. One of the most common ways anxiety is managed is through proximity without intimacy, being around people, staying busy, keeping contact, filling space. For a moment, the system feels less alone, more oriented, more regulated. But the nervous system never truly settles because what it's seeking isn't activity or reassurance, it's safety in emotional contact. So the anxiety remains, life continues, but from a place of monitoring, not inhabiting. Another common way anxiety hides is through relationships that never fully arrive, situationships, breadcrumbing, inconsistent bonds, emotional almosts. The nervous system stays engaged, waiting, scanning, interpreting, hoping. Rare moments of warmth are called safety. Intensity is called connection. Potential is called intimacy. Crumbs are called enough, not because the person is naive, but because the body learned early to organise around very little. Anxiety doesn't always look like fear. Sometimes it looks like staying in bonds that don't settle you, staying in dynamics that never stabilise, calling inconsistency chemistry, calling intensity depth, calling longing love, and letting go doesn't only mean losing a person, it means grieving the safety the nervous system was still trying to find. It means grieving the relationship your body kept organising for in someone who could never offer it. One of the most painful parts of anxious connection is the emotional rollercoaster. Highs that feel like relief, lows that feel like collapse, moments of closeness followed by sudden distance, hope, then panic, connection, then disappearance. The body never settles because the bond itself is unsettled. From an attachment lens, this is often called anxious attachment. From a nervous system lens, it is an organism trying to regulate inside unpredictable connection. So the system rides the relationship up when there is contact, down when there is not. Not because you're dramatic, but because your nervous system learned that love was inconsistent, and inconsistency trains the body to live in reaction. Anxiety in relationships doesn't always choose change. Sometimes it chooses proximity, it chooses predictability over emotional safety, contact over attunement, staying over settling. So relationships are held on to not because they are nourishing, but because they keep the nervous system oriented. The bond is there, but regulation is not. Needs stay loud, longing stays active. The body keeps scanning for response. Life continues together, but something essential never rests. This is anxiety inside emotional disconnection. Anxiety often begins when a child learns that safety is inconsistent and connection is unpredictable, when emotional needs aren't reliably met, when environments are tense, changeable, or emotionally unavailable. The nervous system adapts, not by wanting less, but by staying alert, by tracking, by anticipating, by preparing. That early intelligence stays in the nervous system, and anxiety is often the inner child saying it was safer to stay ready. Anxiety often forms when early environments required a child to stay alert, when closeness was unpredictable, when emotions weren't reliably met, when safety depended on reading the room, anticipating needs, or not being caught off guard. The nervous system learned a solution: stay aware, stay ready, stay one step ahead, not because the child was anxious, but because vigilance preserved connection. Early intelligence doesn't disappear, it lives on as an anxious nervous system. Anxiety is not just the fear of the future. For many people, it is the fear of disappearance of contact, disappearance of safety, disappearance of being held in someone's awareness. From an inner child lens, anxiety often forms when early connection was inconsistent, unpredictable, or emotionally unavailable. The child doesn't stop needing closeness. They stop trusting it will stay. So the nervous system learns to track, monitor, anticipate, stay alert inside relationship, not because the child is dramatic, but because connection did not reliably hold. That early learning doesn't live in memory. It lives in the body, in the way the adult waits for texts, in the way the distance feels like danger, in the way the system never quite settles into being chosen. This is anxiety shaped by abandonment, not imagined, not irrational, remembered. Anxiety is not always born from what happened. Often it forms from what didn't, from emotions that weren't responded to, from needs that weren't noticed, from a child learning to manage their inner world alone. When emotional presence is inconsistent, distracted, or unavailable, the child doesn't stop feeling, they stop bringing their feelings outward. The nervous system learns to track instead of express, to anticipate instead of receive, to stay alert rather than settled. That early emotional solitude becomes physiology. It lives on as overthinking, self-soothing that doesn't settle, hyper-independence, anxiety without a clear source. This is anxiety shaped by emotional neglect, not because something was wrong with you, but because something essential was missing. Anxiety is not random, it is organised. From an inner child and nervous system lens, anxiety forms when early environments did not reliably offer safety, emotional presence, or consistency. So the child's nervous system learned to watch, to track, to anticipate, to stay ready, not because the child was anxious, but because readiness preserved connection. That learning doesn't disappear. It becomes the body's way of being, how you enter rooms, how you read tone, how you wait for replies, how you struggle to rest even when life is fine. Anxiety is not a flaw in you, it is a memory in the nervous system of what was required to stay connected, and what was learned in relationship can be unlearned in relationship. Anxiety is not a thought problem. It is a nervous system state. It forms when the body learns that the world, relationships or emotions are unpredictable. So the system adapts. It stays alert, it scans, it anticipates, it prepares. Not because something is wrong, but because something once required readiness. An anxious nervous system is organised around protection. It doesn't wait to feel danger, it looks for it, which is why anxiety can persist even when life appears calm. The body isn't responding to the present, it is living from what it learned. Anxiety doesn't resolve through logic, it softens when the nervous system experiences safety. Anxiety doesn't only live in the mind, it lives in the body, in the chest that feels tight, in the stomach that never settles, in the throat that holds, in the jaw that clenches, in the exhaustion that doesn't match your life. These are not random symptoms, they are nervous system signals. The body is preparing, mobilizing, bracing, trying to protect you before anything happens. This is why anxiety can be present even when you're not thinking anxious thoughts. The body learned something long before the mind made sense of it. And the body is where anxiety must be met. Anxiety is not just worry. It is a body that keeps mobilizing without ever completing. When a nervous system prepares for threat, it is meant to activate, move, discharge, and return to rest. But in many early environments, activation had nowhere to go. You couldn't leave, you couldn't express, you couldn't resolve. So the body learned to stay ready without release, alert, braced, scanning. This is an unfinished stress cycle, energy prepared for action with no safe way to complete it. And anxiety is what that unfinished mobilization feels like living in the body. Anxiety doesn't persist because you think too much. It persists because the body never learned how to safely come back down. Anxiety doesn't only show up as worry. Often it shows up as a nervous system that can't sleep because night removes distraction. There is no task, no performance, no scanning of the room. So the body does what it learned to do in unsafe environments. It stays alert, not because something is about to happen, but because calm once wasn't safe. For many people shaped by emotional unpredictability, the nervous system learned that softness makes you vulnerable. So bedtime becomes a threat cue. The mind loops, the body braces, the system stays awake. This isn't you being difficult. It's hypervigilance after dark, and sleep returns as the body learns nothing has to be managed anymore to be safe. Anxiety is often misunderstood as fear, but very often it lives as control. Controlling outcomes, controlling environments, controlling conversations, controlling yourself, not because you are rigid, but because unpredictability once felt unsafe. Control is how an anxious nervous system tries to rest. If I can anticipate it, manage it, prepare for it, maybe I won't be overwhelmed by it. So the body scans, plans, tracks, holds, and for a moment there is relief. But control doesn't create safety. It creates vigilance, and vigilance never settles. Anxiety softens not when life becomes controllable, but when the nervous system learns it can be supported. Anxiety is often organised around reassurance, asking, checking, reading tone, revisiting conversations, needing to hear it again, not because the person is insecure, but because reassurance briefly quiets a nervous system that doesn't feel settled. For a moment the body softens, and then the feeling returns, so reassurance is sought again, not because it didn't work, but because it didn't reach the place where it was needed. Reassurance speaks to the mind. Anxiety lives in the nervous system, and nervous systems don't calm through information. They calm through safety, consistency, and emotional presence. This is why reassurance so often soothes, but doesn't settle. When anxiety feels unbearable, the nervous system doesn't just sit still and reflect. It adapts. Most people don't ignore anxiety. They work around it. They stay busy. They over-prepare. They seek reassurance. They control. They distract. They scan. Not because they're weak, but because the sensation feels too threatening to stay with. So anxiety is managed, not met. And what isn't met doesn't soften. It organises. Anxiety isn't always the problem. Avoidance is, because what you avoid doesn't disappear. It stays in the nervous system. Every time you distract, overwork, overthink, or overcontrol, the body learns this feeling is dangerous. So the system stays alert, not because you're weak, but because the stress response never completes. Stress needs movement, breath, tears, expression, completion. Avoidance interrupts the cycle, so anxiety remains unfinished. Healing isn't forcing calm, it is staying with a sensation long enough for the body to realise this can move and I don't have to run. Overthinking is not a lack of discipline, and it isn't a character flaw. It's not that you can't stop. It is that thinking once kept you safe, when unpredictability lived in connection, when emotions weren't met, when outcomes felt uncertain. The nervous system learned to stay ahead, to analyse, to anticipate, to rehearse, to track, to prepare, not because it's broken, but because vigilance felt safer than resting. Nothing is wrong with you. This is what happens when the body learned too early that calm was not protective. Over time, this becomes a way of being. The adult may move through life with a persistent sense of inner unrest. Even in calm moments, part of the system remains active, scanning, tracking, anticipating, preparing. Connection may be present, success may arrive, rest may be attempted, and yet the body doesn't land. This is why many people with anxiety describe never fully relaxing, never switching off, never arriving inside experience. The body is not failing to feel peace, it is ensuring that peace does not make you unprepared. Anxiety erodes the self without collapse. There is no crisis, there is no contraction. Attention narrows, the body stays braced, the mind lives ahead of the moment. The system prioritises vigilance over presence, control over contact, safety over rest, not because you're broken, but because the body learned that safety required readiness, and over time something essential stops settling. Achievement can disguise it, busyness can normalise it, and productivity can praise it, spirituality can bypass it. But what many people are organising around is not ambition, it's vigilance. And the more efficiently we build lives that keep us alert, the less opportunity the nervous system has to learn that it no longer has to be. For many people, anxiety is not fear, it is responsibility. Responsibility for moods, for harmony, for outcomes, for other people's emotions. From a nervous system lens, this forms early, when a child learns that connection depends on being aware, careful, or emotionally available. The body adapts, it tracks, it anticipates, it manages, it holds, not because the child is mature, but because someone else was not regulated. So the nervous system grows around responsibility, and that responsibility lives on as anxiety, not something bad is about to happen, but I must stay aware, I must not miss anything, I must keep things okay. This is anxiety shaped by emotional responsibility, not weakness, history. Anxiety is often intertwined with difficulty around boundaries. Saying no can feel dangerous, space can feel like rejection, disappointing others can feel like loss. So the nervous system adapts, it accommodates, it explains, it overgives, it overstays, it anticipates what others need, not because the person lacks self-respect, but because early connection may have required self-adjustment. When closeness once depended on being easy, pleasing, or emotionally available, the body learned keeping connection matters more than protecting space. So boundaries don't feel like self-care, they feel like threat. And anxiety rises not because a boundary is wrong, but because the nervous system is bracing for what boundaries once cost. This is not weakness. It is attachment history living in the body. Anxiety often hides anger, not the explosive kind, the quiet anger that never had permission to exist, because in many early environments, anger wasn't safe. It risked rejection, withdrawal, punishment, or being labelled too much. So the nervous system adapted. Instead of expressing anger, it turned the energy inward, overthinking, tension, control, people-pleasing, scanning for what might go wrong. But anger is not a flaw, it is a mobilised protection. It's the part of you that knows something isn't okay. When anger can't move outward as a boundary, it often becomes anxiety. So healing isn't getting rid of anger, it's learning to let it become clean, a no, a limit, a truth. Anger isn't the enemy, unexpressed anger often becomes the fuel. Anxiety, over-attunement and toxic empathy are linked but not the same. Anxiety is the nervous system staying alert. Over-attunement is the nervous system orienting outward, tracking moods, tone and emotional shifts. Toxic empathy is what happens when attunement replaces self-presence, when feeling others feels safer than feeling yourself. They often form where safety depended on awareness and accommodation. These are not personality traits. They are relational, nervous system adaptations. Anxiety and intuition are often confused, but they are not the same. Anxiety is urgent, repetitive, future-focused. It scans and prepares. Intuition is quiet, clear, present, and it doesn't spiral. Anxiety arises from protection. Intuition arises from safety. Learning the difference isn't mental, it's nervous system work. For many people, anxiety is not just fear, it is hope management. Managing how much you want, how much you expect, how much you let yourself believe in. When hope once led to disappointment, when longing wasn't met, when reaching didn't bring response, the nervous system learned to interfere. It anticipates loss, prepares for letdown, scans for what might go wrong. Not because it's pessimistic, but because it's trying to protect hope from breaking the heart again. So anxiety doesn't only imagine danger, it manages possibility, so that nothing is ever felt without a brace. This is not negativity, it is a body that once hoped and paid for it. Anxiety is not about danger, it is about unfinished safety. From an inner child lens, anxiety often forms when a child did not have enough experiences of being helped back down, enough moments of being soothed, of being emotionally met, of being held while feelings moved. So the nervous system learned to stay up, alert, prepared, oriented, not because the child was dramatic, but because safety was never fully completed in the body. That early learning doesn't disappear. It lives on in a nervous system that now doesn't know how to arrive, how to rest inside the present, how to trust calm. This is anxiety shaped by unfinished safety, not weakness, not imagination, a body still waiting for what it didn't get. Chronic anxiety is not a malfunction. It is a protective response to relational trauma. It forms when connection did not reliably bring safety, when closeness required vigilance, when emotions weren't met, when needs felt risky, when love was unpredictable. So the nervous system learned to stay awake inside relationship, scanning, tracking, preparing, holding emotional weather, anticipating shifts. Chronic anxiety is not about fear of life. It is about a nervous system that never learned it could rest inside connection. Success doesn't calm anxiety because anxiety is not about circumstances. It's about safety. You can change your life and still feel braced because the nervous system doesn't organise around achievement. It organises around emotional experience. If safety wasn't learned in connection, it can't be installed through success. So anxiety remains, not because you're failing, but because your body hasn't yet learned it can rest. Anxiety does not soften through control. It does not settle through reassurance. It does not resolve through analysis. It calms through safety, through gentle presence, through regulated connection, through contact that does not require monitoring, through moments where nothing is being managed, nothing is being anticipated, nothing is being prevented. And slowly the nervous system learns something new, that the moment no longer needs to be scanned, that closeness no longer needs to be tracked, that being here does not require readiness. Anxiety does not end when life becomes certain. It softens when the body experiences that it is no longer alone inside experience, that it can rest inside contact, that it can arrive without preparing, that the moment no longer needs to be survived. It can be inhabited. Anxiety does not resolve by convincing the mind. It softens when the body learns safety, not through forcing calm, not through suppressing fear, not through managing every thought, but through repeated experiences where the nervous system discovers that the moment can be entered without scanning, closeness can be felt without tracking, emotion can move without catastrophe, rest does not lead to danger, needs do not rupture connection, boundaries do not threaten belonging. This is nervous system work. It is relational, it is embodied, it is gradual. Anxiety ceases when the body no longer has to stay ahead of life, when it no longer has to brace for experience, when it learns it can arrive inside the present without preparing to survive it. Healing anxiety is not fast work. It is not linear, and it is not about becoming calmer as a personality. It is about gently teaching the nervous system something it did not learn early, that safety can exist without vigilance, that connection can exist without monitoring, that the moment can be entered without preparing for its collapse. Anxiety formed over time through repetition, through environments where staying alert made sense. It does not unwind through willpower. It unwinds through slow, lived experiences where nothing goes wrong, when the body softens, where closeness doesn't require readiness, where rest doesn't lead to loss, where presence doesn't cost you safety. When awareness grows, anxiety often feels louder, not quieter, because you are no longer running from it. Growth reduces unconscious coping. As insight deepens, the nervous system begins to loosen its constant management. What you once overrode, you now feel. What you once stayed ahead of, you now notice. This creates a painful gap. You are no longer numbing or distracting, but your system may not yet feel safe enough to rest. So anxiety can feel more visible, more embodied, more confronting. This is not regression, it's transition. It is the nervous system beginning to come out of constant mobilization before it has fully learned how to settle. The shaking of an old strategy before a new one is embodied. This phase is not a sign that something is wrong. It is often a sign that something real is changing. If anxiety is present right now, this is not something to do. This is something to allow. Wherever you are, see if you can gently let your body be supported by the chair, the floor, the wall, the bed. Let your weight drop. And then, without changing your breath, see if you can notice one place where your body is already held. Your back, your feet, your hands. Stay there for 3 slow breaths. Not to calm yourself, but to let your nervous system experience being here without needing to prepare. This is not a technique, it's a message. I am here, and nothing is required of me in this moment. And that is exactly where anxiety begins to soften. If watching this video has resonated with you, my trauma-informed 6-week immersion combines hypnotherapy, somatic practice, and inner child work to restore regulation and rebuild self-trust. It teaches your body that safety no longer depends on control, that love and calm can coexist. If you'd like support, you're welcome to book a complimentary discovery call. I work both in person and online. You don't have to carry this alone. You're not too much, you're not broken. You're becoming.